We captured wild wolves, tied them up, and bred them to follow our orders. That is the story we have always told ourselves about how we invented the dog. But we have the history of dogs completely backward. Nobody ever sat down and designed a dog. On a Siberian fur farm, two kinds of foxes are born cages apart. Reach toward the first, and it slams into the bars, snarling. But reach toward the second instead, and it whimpers, rolls over, and pushes its head into your palm. Nobody trained the gentle ones. Their grandparents were wild animals that would have bitten you. These foxes were born running toward you instead, proving that domestication is a biological trait we can breed, not a behavior we teach. The man who proved this was a Soviet biologist named Dmitri Belyaev. He hypothesized that all our domesticated animals, dogs, cows, pigs, were made by accident. He believed that selecting for a single trait caused everything else to follow on its own. Testing that theory was incredibly dangerous. The Soviet government had banned the study of genetics entirely, labeling it a Western lie. Scientists who pursued it were fired, jailed, or even killed. So Belyaev took his work out to the freezing fur farms of Siberia, where silver foxes were raised by the thousands for their pelts. He kept his head down and ran his experiment quietly. Belyaev risked his life to prove that a wild animal could be biologically rewritten in just a few decades. His team opened every cage and scored how each fox reacted to a human hand. Out of every 100 animals, they kept only the calmest 12 to breed and ignored the rest. For the first few generations, the foxes stayed wild, but by the 6th, the pups were actively seeking human affection, licking at hands and crying when their favorite researcher walked away. Then their bodies started to mutate. Stiff ears began to flop. Straight tails curled into a hook. Their snouts shortened, and patches of white spread across their fur, giving them the soft, open face of a puppy. The changes ran deep into their chemistry. By the 12th generation, the tame foxes carried half the stress hormones of a normal fox, while their brains pumped out higher levels of serotonin to keep them content. Belyaev had selected for none of those physical traits. He only pulled one genetic lever, friendliness, and an entire package of unintended changes arrived alongside it. The reason all of this arrives as a bundle sits in a small batch of embryonic stem cells called the neural crest. Before birth, neural crest cells build seemingly unrelated things: fear glands, ear cartilage, and fur pigment. By breeding calm foxes, Belyaev shrank this initial batch. Fewer cells meant less fear, but inherently meant less color and softer ears. The pathways break together. Scientists named the pattern the domestication syndrome. Fear and physical cuteness are wired to the exact same dial. You cannot turn down the aggression without triggering the floppy-eared, patchy-coated traits alongside it. Belyaev ran his controlled experiment on foxes, but the very same process happened in the wild, to the gray wolf. Only it took 15,000 years, with no humans pulling the levers. Wolves that were a little less afraid of us crept closer to ancient camps to scavenge for leftover food. Those calmer wolves ate better, survived the winters, and bred more often. Generation after generation, the friendliest individuals stripped the fear out of their own DNA. No one tamed the first dog. The wolves simply triggered domestication syndrome in themselves, and every strange mutation that appeared in the Siberian foxes is sitting in the animal resting its head on your leg right now. When you and your dog lock eyes, both of your brains release a surge of oxytocin. Your pet literally reaches into the neurochemistry your body keeps for your own newborn children and switches it on. Dogs even grew a specific eyebrow muscle, one that wolves lack entirely, just to lift their inner brow into a pleading look. And deep down, the friendliest dogs carry variations in the exact same DNA sequence that causes Williams syndrome in humans, a condition that leaves people trusting and loving without fear. The devotion, the floppy ears, the way they look at you and melt, none of it was engineered. It is all just the beautiful biological side effect of a wild animal choosing not to be afraid.